Governor Otom, it's the humble pie, says, I'm sorry, I didn't mean what I said about the Fulani. Konkonso says he's happy because Wike and Umahi, who are performers, are not on the ballot. Keyamo denies Tinubu's U.S. drug links, says forfeited money were tax deductions. Also coming up here on Politics HQ, 8 Nigerian American politicians win U.S. legislative seats. And of course, Kenya's South Africa to begin mutual visa-free system in January. We'll be back when we come back. I'm Sulaiman Aledeh. Dr. Adetokunbo Pearse, he's a member of the People's Democratic Party and National Presidential Campaign Council and Lagos State Coordinator Atiku, Okowa Presidential Support Groups. And of course, in faraway United Arab Emirates, Sulaiman, a Nigerian resident in Dubai, will be speaking with us, telling us on what's going on in Dubai as it relates to Nigerians in Dubai. Well, we're digging deep, looking at activities happening in Nigeria. On the HQ, we had conversations surrounding that comment by the Benue State Governor, Governor Otom, saying a whole lot of things about his candidate. And here we are with Dr. Adetokunbo Pearse, who's a member of the PDP National Presidential Campaign Council. Good to see you, Dr. Pearse, and thanks for your time as always.
I'm glad to be here.
You know, sometimes you look at it and you say the PDP versus the PDP, because these are members of your political party. And of course, the last time you were here, we spoke about your candidate. And of course, you told us about his incursion he's made in so many geopolitical zones in the country. Now, first, let's talk about the spat we saw from the governor of Benue State, talking about the Fulanese and your candidate, Turaki Adamawa Atiku Abubakar.
You know, Atiku Abubakar is actually a chieftain of Benue State.
A chieftain of Benue State?
Yeah. He has a traditional title there. That is an indication of how close he is to the people of that area. And it's just been a misunderstanding on the part of Governor Otom. And you can understand the sentiments involved after so many occurrences of herdsmen and farmers' clashes. And the terrible situation, I think 5 years or so ago, when the Benue State legislature made a law that there be no open grazing. Unfortunately, since they don't have their own police force, they could not enforce the law. And it ended up that the Nigerian government Nigerian police came and allowed open grazing. So you see, part of the things that we need to understand in this campaign is what the presidential candidates say they're going to do and how it will affect the issues on ground, how it will solve some of the problems we have. For instance.
No, Doctor, we'll come back to that. I don't want you to lose your train of thought. But again, one of the biggest concern of PDP members is the infighting. A governor is a big position in any political party. And for the governor, for the G5, that's what they call themselves, the G5 governors, not to be on the same page with your candidate, the PDP candidate. How is the party making that move to ensuring that all is well before the big day?
First and foremost, politics is dynamic. Politicians are defined as here today, gone tomorrow gladiators. Philosophers have defined politics as war by other means. Therefore, these things are to be expected. Whenever there's disagreement, you have houses of assembly all over the world even develop where they throw blows at each other. So look at the fighting going on now between the Democrats and the Republicans in America. I mean, it's like war. So what's going on in our own party is not unnatural. It is not even a crisis. It's a misunderstanding. It's a process. And you see how things are moving, that even now, the G5 is going to reduce to G2, but after that, it's going to be G1. After that, it's going to be 0. Everybody's going to be on board eventually. This situation cannot continue like this. But luckily for us, there is a difference between what a governor of a state is saying and what is actually happening with the members of the party in that state. I'll give you an example. You remember when Governor Makinde of Oyo State said something about not wanting to work with Atiku and so on? Immediately, you had a response from the party in all the 6 states of which he is supposed to be the leader, saying they are not with him. They made that clear that the party in their state is going to support the presidential candidate of the party, irrespective of what the governor is saying. Therefore, this is how politics goes. What people are concerned about is what that candidate, Atiku, wants to do to solve the problems. This issue of the disagreement with these 5, by the way, we have 13 governors, so we are still on the aggregate on top in this situation. Atiku still has most of the governors with him. But I'm telling you, he has 90% of PDP, if not 99% of PDP members of the party with him. And our intention is to get Nigerians, whether they're in PDP or APC, they're non-aligned, to be with him because they need to look at what he says he's going to do and he's going to solve the problem. He is the best candidate, the best hope for Benue.
No doubt. I'm going to give you the space, Dr. Pearse,
yes.
to expatiate more on
yes.
that, to tell Nigerians and the world watching why Atiku Abubakar should be the one. But again, you did say he's already making moves to ensuring that there is, well, some seeming peace between himself and the G5 governors. Let us in on what kind of overtures, what Nigerians are expected, to see in the days to come, especially with Governor Tom, who's just made a U-turn, and of course, Nyesom Wike, Governor Makinde, and the 2 others. Everybody is going to have to make a U-turn because there's nowhere else to go. All 5 of them? All of them. There's nowhere else to go. You see, the beauty of a democracy is you have choices. If, for instance, the APC candidate or the Labour candidate or the other candidates were superior in terms of what they bring to the table, then maybe these 5 governors would have gone already. But they can't go anywhere because there's no option. Atiku may be bad, but by far, compared to the other candidates, is Mother Teresa. Is Nelson Mandela. Therefore, they're going to come back, they're going to stay, they're going to say, okay, we don't have a choice. Governor Wike, the most vocal of all, has said he's not leaving PDP. He said one time, you remember, he said, look, I will never leave PDP to go to APC because I have malaria. You want me to go and get ulcer in APC. So that's the comparison. That's the comparison. It is not perfect. We continue to dialogue. The more strength we show, the more we campaign to Nigerians to see the quality of the candidacy of Atiku Abubakar, the more these governors themselves will realize that the only choice is to take the best of the worst lot. And talking about campaigns, just recently your candidate was in Borno State. Mm-hmm. And news filtered that he was stoned. Mm-hmm. Was he stoned? I don't know the details of what happened there, but I can tell you this. Any governor, any individual who goes contrary to the law
who threatens lives, who becomes aggressive and violent and becomes lawless, would have to pay the price to the Nigerian government and the Nigerian people. If, because the governor of Borno is the vice presidential candidate of the APC, and when we go to Borno, they want to attack us and treat us as if we're aliens, they're going to suffer for it. Nigerians will not take it, because people of Borno are not all going to support one party or the other. We have friends and supporters in Borno just as they have. Wherever we go, we must comport ourselves with decency and know that after all of this is done, we're all Nigerians, and we want Nigerians to know what we have to offer. There's no need to attack anybody.
I think the language, I'm trying to look at how you qualify your language. This is, I must commend you. That's how politicians should speak. It's a language that is, filled with some kind of inclusion. Now, speak to us on what people should expect as we move towards the 2023 election, because your party, we'll still go back to your party, for a party member, a governor, a sitting governor of your party, to use words like "go to hell," and anyone who's with my candidate is my enemy. These are strong words, Dr. Pearse.
This is the reason why these governors will have to calm down and begin to check the language, both actions and language. Otherwise, they're going to be in trouble. Because I heard Governor Otom and Wike say things to the effect that they're ready to die. They're ready to go to jail, as if somebody is threatening to kill them.
He's written his will, he said.
He said he's written his will. Come on. That language is unbecoming of any adult, let alone a governor of a state, a man at that level.
How risky is it to become to be a member of the PDP? For someone to say, "I've written my will, I'm ready to die," that says a lot.
I am sure that the security services have been asking them questions now, because if you say you've written your will, you must let the security forces know that they need to protect you. From who? You now have to talk. I think that's why they're recanting now and changing their position, because they realize that this is just inflammatory language to seek sympathy where there is no need for it. And now they have to come back and say, "No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way. It was terrible. It was terrible." They're getting too emotional about this thing.
You're an academic as well, and you're also a teacher of the language and history. Is it possible to have a decorous, political space, especially as Nigerians campaign towards that election? How possible is that?
We're going to have all sorts of people saying all sorts of things, rumors, and even false presentations. But we're going to have to contend with it. We have to continually challenge what is not proper, and we have to continually let Nigerians know the other side of the story. That is why people like me come and we speak, and we say, "Look, you cannot do this." I've always said that Governor Wike was going too far, because I always said, "He who fights and moves away lives to fight another day." And prudence is the better part of valor. So you cannot just continue to say, "When I fight, I don't come back." You don't look, that is suicidal. Do you want to commit suicide? So I think that as we go along and the security forces begin to talk to people and caution people on what they can say and what they cannot say, and what they can do and what they cannot do, Nigerians are looking for a peaceful election, and they're looking for resolution to the problems we have, and that is why the PDP presidential candidate has stayed on policy issues.
Now let's talk about resolutions. You said the people are looking for resolutions. Now we have two political parties,
Sure.
two political parties going into this election that have been tested by the Nigerian people,
Sure.
the PDP and the APC.
Sure.
What do you think the PDP will be saying to the people, knowing full well that they've been on the saddle, they were eased out by the Nigerian people on account of perhaps performing badly? What else would they be saying to the people that will make the people have a rethink to welcome them back?
Well, similarly to what I said before, it's a question of comparison. Jonathan Sambo administration may have been bad, but compared to this one, we're in hell now. I said it at the time. I'm a teacher. I use grades to determine, to evaluate. At the time, in fact, I'm sure I said to you that Jonathan may have scored 55%. It's a C in the university system. But Buhari is going to score 20%. It's F minus. In fact, he has scored 10% now.
You've just taken it down.
Yes. He's going down and down. Like from 5, he's going to go to 1.
But the good thing is that Buhari is not on the ballot.
Yeah, no, the party is on the ballot, and his main man is on the ballot. Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who preached that Buhari is going to solve all our problems, is on the ballot. And we can see now that if people say, what does PDP have to offer now? Okay, number one, we've learned our lesson. Number two, when we were in government, we were much better. Compare the price of household items now, the price of oil, giving inflation. I'm not going to say that a bag of rice that was 7,000 in 2015 should be 10,000 now. No. 7,000 50-kilo bags should be about 15,000 now, 20,000, but it's 45,000. That is the exchange. That is the rate. The naira went to almost, to the dollar, almost 90,000. 90 to the dollar just recently. And look, things are so bad. Security, we are in trouble. Everywhere there is fear and intimidation. Therefore, we need somebody who can solve this problem. And it's not a question of APC or PDP. All of us have made mistakes. As I said, if you want to compare the two, this is a much worse administration than the PDP. But let us say all of us were no good, okay? Now, where do we go? What do we have in front of us? This is the beauty of democracy. Every 4 years or so, you have a choice before you. And I say to Nigerians, choose wisely between the APC candidate and Atiku Abubakar with his 5-point agenda.
Talking about the 5-point agenda, perhaps we'll come back talking about that. But let's talk about one of the big, false move made by your party, and it has to do with the Labour Party candidate who was once upon a time a member of the PDP.
Sure.
And many still think that your party would have been having perhaps an easier ride if Peter Obi was still with your party. Did you think it's a loss that your party is still, regretting?
If Peter Obi was with the party and he became the presidential candidate, or if he was just in the party?
Peter Obi wanted to be the presidential candidate because your party wanted a lot of people, and that's the whole grass with Nyesom Wike and some others. They felt that it should be zoned to the south of the country.
No. In the first place, Sulaiman, the party decided not to zone. And all the South leaders from the South who wanted it to be zoned to the South were party to the process that ended up deciding not to zone. The PDP set up a national committee of about 35 people to determine whether to zone or not to zone. They decided that they were not going to zone to the South. And for your information and for Nigerians...
Why was that decision made?
Wait a minute. For your information, Atiku Abubakar made a suggestion. He said, if you are going to zone this thing, let us zone it to southeast. They refused.
He actually said
that? Yes, that was his position. He said, you cannot say you are zoning to the south. Let us say, okay, because you want a president from the south, let us zone to the southeast. Nobody wanted to do it. And you ask me why we decided not to zone. I don't know. It was a collective decision. You know, this is the beauty of, look, I used to be a hardcore dictator, autocrat. I learned the beauty of democracy. Let the people decide. You can't go wrong. You cannot go wrong. 35 senior members of our party sat down and said there's no zoning. We never zoned, by the way. We always allow only in a crisis, which happened in 1999 because of Abiola situation. People want to compare that. That was a heavy crisis with Nadeko. So they had to find a way to calm down the Southwest, in fact, the whole of the country. That's why they made it that since Abiola won the election, according to the records, according to their view, the thing now must be decided by his zone. That's what happened then. That's not the same situation now. Therefore, the party decided not to zone. And by the way, if these southern leaders were so hell-bent on zoning that they had to come to the southwest or to the south, why did they take part in the election that had not been zoned to them? Unless they felt that they would participate if it's a fair and open democratic election, whoever wins, wins. Wike participated fully because he felt it was Wike that said it should not be zoned to the southeast. This same Wike, because he wanted it to be zoned to the south so that he would be able to contest and win. He was the one, it was his antics that pushed Obi out of PDP, not anybody else. These are the facts. I can tell you more about this situation. So people, Nigerians need to understand. I believe that the more Nigerians listen and understand what is going on, the better. And I know they will make the right choice. It's so simple. This is the first election that I'm participating in, and I am so sure of the result because of the issues and the policy of the candidates and their personal history.
Hold your thought there, Dr. Pearse, and we'll come back and you speak more about the 5-point agenda and how sure about the result of the 2023 election when we come back. Stay with us here on Politics HQ. Well, if you just joined us, you're welcome. You're watching Politics HQ here on News Central Television, broadcasting live to 54 African countries and beyond. And we're talking about politics in Nigeria as the country moves towards the big election in 2023. And one of the big parties going into that election is the PDP, which is the biggest opposition that had a stint in governance in the country. And of course, Dr. Adetokunbo Pearse is here. He's speaking about his candidate, and you were going to tell us about the 5-point agenda of your candidate, Atiku Abubakar. And we'll come back. We'll still come back about the result because he's got something, but he has an inkling on how the election will pan out. First, 5-point agenda.
This is the policy thrust of Atiku, which is why I think it's very attractive and to help Nigeria, will rescue us from the problems. First, unity. How do you unify Nigeria? You unify Nigeria by being fair in your appointments, not like what is going on now, whereby out of 26 judiciary, 22 are from the north and only 4 from the south. You got to have balance, then people will trust you. That is unity. And Atiku is a unifier. He would make those appointments and be fair so that people would trust his administration. One. Two.
Well, before we get into two, that's a fine one. But particularly, some Nigerians weren't too impressed when they heard him say what Nigerians need is not a president from the South, a president from the West, but a northern president. And they said, well, that doesn't sound like a unifier speaking.
Very true, very true. And that's because it was taken out of context. When people told me that, a newspaperman called me and said that, and I'll send him the whole transcript so that you can see it in context. What Atiku, he can never say that in his sleep. What he said was, you do not need a northern president, you do not need a southern president, you need a president like me who is a unifier, who has tentacles everywhere, who is loved in the South and the North. I'm a northerner. So it's your advantage to have me, but not because I'm a northerner, but because I am a unifier, I'm a pan-Nigerian. That's what he said. I'm going to send you the full script of what he said. Let me tell you, if Atiku appears to be a northern hegemonist, people like me will not be with him. No, his whole life, his whole staff, his doctor for many years now is an Igbo man. His cook is not a Fulani Hausa. The people closest to him, his spokesperson, all of them, nobody from his tribe.
So let's quickly go to number two. You know, we already have number one, unity, and number two on the list.
Security. One of the first things he said that he would do is to increase the number of police so that we can go back to what UNESCO is proposing. One of the worst things that is happening to us, you see, NSAS, when the rebels came out, when the protesters came out, police ran away because you're going to have one police to 1,000 people. We need to increase the police. And by the way, this is the security issue. His policy on security is going to help Benue and other states to secure their states and protect their citizens. Unlike now, where we do not have state police, Atiku's policy on security would include state police, so that Benue and other states, whenever they have a law, for instance, no open grazing in Benue, they will be able to enforce the law. They will not need Nigerian police to come and tell them how to enforce the law. Now they cannot enforce the law, they are not armed, they don't have police, and so on. So you understand? So security will be greatly improved across board. Across board. Now, the third one is the economy. The economy will be greatly improved if you have a situation where, first and foremost, all the control of the mineral resources in every state, which is now in the exclusive list for the federal government, the states will now have the ability, the authority to utilize what they have to develop their states, so that Ondo State, sitting on the third largest deposit of bitumen in the world, will be able to utilize that bitumen to develop not only Ondo State, but the whole of Southwest. Enugu State, sitting on the ninth largest deposit of natural gas in the world, we're able to use that resource to develop not only Enugu, but the whole zone, as an example. And all the other states have, Abia has oil. Now, we're going to change the formula whereby if you have this resource, you produce it there, you can go to an international market and get investors to work with you to develop it and to use it to develop your states and just pay tax to the federal government. Nigeria will be a much, much prosperous country with this policy. Lithium was discovered in Kwara State just a few months ago. This is what they use to power electric cars, for goodness sake. Can you imagine what is needed all over the world? We have it here. Bauxite in North Central. Bauxite in gold in Northwest. all over this country. You have these resources. That policy on the economy will release the wealth for the grace of the people.
So what more do we have on this list? There's unity, security, economy.
Education. Education is the antidote to poverty.
Did you hear what he said about education, about the universities? That was quite controversial.
What did he say?
Good. He said he's going to put them back in the hands of the states.
The universities?
Yes.
The federal government has no business controlling anything. The states know what.
You know, I'm excited. You should know this better because you're an academic.
Well,
let's talk about that.
And you know, he has a good record, a strong record on education. He has schools at all levels. And the most popular one is this university, the American university. He understands that education is very expensive. That's why a lot of people don't know. Now, if the states have the money, as we have said, through the economy, they are now going to be able to finance their police, finance their education, you know, and education cannot just be something that federal government has no business in education. The states now, with the private sector in the states, it has to be local. That is the point that he's making. When you have that, you will see a great improvement in education. I tell you this, these strikes of universities all the time will be a thing of the past. A thing of the past. Because one of the things that is responsible for this disenchantment in the university system now is that the TED fund, which the government agreed was going to be used to finance education, which is a percentage of profits making the private sector paid into education fund, is now being raided by the Buhari administration because they have no initiative, no creativity in how to raise money. So they go and raise that fund. Atiku will not allow that to happen because Atiku does not even want the federal government to be funding education because there's a process to fund education already. Let it be. Let it be. And this is what is happening when you have leadership that doesn't know what it's doing. All our oil now, the resources we have in terms of oil, we block all that leakage. If we block that leakage, can you imagine how much revenue Nigeria will be getting? So that is education. And then restructuring. Restructuring is simply, it actually is the theory and philosophy behind everything the other four, or rather the other three, because the equality of unity, the issue of unity is a question of personal way of looking at life. Now, restructuring is decentralization of government so that the federal government does not control everything. Offices are decentralized so that when you want something from the federal government, I have an example of people who retire from the federal service. They can't get their pension here in Lagos. They can't get their pension in Aba. They can't get it in Sokoto. They have to go to, what's the capital of the country? That's where everybody has to go and get whatever due is due to them. Now, what you do is you have it in your state. That is one. Number two, the issue of devolution of power to the states so that they can decide on their lives, on the things that concern them, education, you know, the economy, and so on. And then decentralization of the economy. In restructuring, the fiscal restructuring of the economy, whereby you now diversify the economy. And every state producing minerals, I have a chart, all the states, all the mineral resources there, all the agricultural resources there, everything there now will be decentralized so that the states, every state will be producing whatever is its own specialty. We will have a multiple sources of revenue. mechanize agriculture, put it fully. And the states will do that because now they have the power to do it.
And has
So
anyone,
this is
Dr. Pearse,
restructuring.
yes, we're winding down. Has anyone ever asked, your candidate why he wasn't able to bring some of these to bear, especially restructuring, which is very key? This is not the first time Nigerians have been clamoring for a restructured system. And he was one-time vice president. He had, key responsibilities that were due him at that time. So why was there any kind of restriction while he served on that Olusegun Obasanjo?
Well, I'm sure you've asked him before. If you haven't, next time you talk to him, you ask him. He'll answer it very brilliantly. One, when you're vice president, you are not the president. You can only do what the president tells you to do. He has said it several times. He had an idea on power. Again, power also. He said he has a policy for power, simply decentralization.
He supervised the privatization.
Yes, but we're talking about now decentralization, if it's a policy of government, will now allow power to be developed locally. Every geopolitical zone.
He's been accused that he gave that, more like freebies to his cronies. And that is why the power sector, for instance, is still where it is today.
Yeah, there is that
shambles.
allegation that he owned this generator company. It has been debunked. It has been published. The company has said the man has nothing to do with them. The problem with Buhari is that he's been, with Atiku, is that he's been around so long and he's a businessman. So many people know him, and they're affiliated with him one way or the other. So people make all sorts of claims, but never. So power, we're going to solve that problem because everything can go to the national grid. Southwest, even just in Southwest, 3 states in the Southwest, Lagos, Ogun, and Oyo, have their own grid, and like that all over the country. That is how you have it in the United States. That is how you have it in any sane administration. We are going to have that now.
And
the difference between the past issue of restructuring and now is that the president in the past, whether it's Obasanjo or Jonathan or Buhari, they themselves have never said, this is my priority, and they have not lobbied for it in the National Assembly, because you cannot have restructuring if the National Assembly doesn't vote for it, doesn't approve it. Atiku has taken it as a mission, which, by the way, is the reason I started working with him. Why I believe in him so much, because I know he's going to help Nigeria if we're able to restructure Nigeria. And this is the point. The man who is at the top of government must lobby and compel and campaign to the National Assembly to pass a law that will now affect restructured Nigeria.
Now, let's talk about the crystal ball that Dr. Pearse talked about. You've seen the result. You say you know what the result will look like.
It seems to me, knowing Nigerians, talking to people, that they are looking for solutions to all this. And the solution is what we talked about now. It is only Atiku who is clearly focused on the solution. Obi talks like a public affairs analyst, like me. He knows all the problems, do all the calculation, but where is the solution? And in your own past history, how have you demonstrated anything close to that? That's why I feel that if we're able to get the message out, this 5-point agenda, let people know exactly what we're talking about. I know people who, grassroots people, my washerman, he said, this Atiku, I think he's a tribalist like all Fulani people. I told him, I said, do you know that his wife comes from your town? He said, what? His wife is a Yoruba woman. I said, look, from then on, he began to change his mind. He said, it cannot be. I said, his children are Yoruba. His children are Hausa. His children are Igbo. Come on. His family is pan-Nigeria. The man is a pan-Nigerian. When people know these things, his past record, look at his record on the economy when he was in charge. He was the chairman of the Economic Council under Obasanjo. Come on. In every sector of the economy, we had improvement. By the way, Okonjo-Iweala, Adesoya, all the people that performed almost miracles, and now these people are celebrated internationally. It was Atiku that brought them into the Obasanjo administration. Well, I think and he's going to do the same in this administration. You're going to have people who are going to be ministers, who are going to run the government, and they're going to be effective, and they're going to solve the problem we have in Nigeria. We have the solution. God has given us everything we
Pearse,
need.
would like to thank you for your time. Many thanks for coming, and we do hope as the campaigns go on full swing, we'll have you back again.
I'd be glad to be back. Thank you for having me.
Coming up, we'll be discussing the Nigeria-UAE visa row from the eye of a Nigerian resident in the United Arab Emirates, Sulaiman.